I walked 10,000 steps every single day for a month, and the results weren't quite what I was expecting. Welcome to Get Together, and if you're new here, this channel is just me trying to figure out how to get my life together and sharing the tips and lessons I learn along the way. Before diving right in, there are indeed section timestamps in the description below, so feel free to hop around as you see fit. So why 10,000 steps? And in fact, why have you likely heard this number thrown out before? Is there some sort of scientific data that supports it? Turns out this was actually a 1965 marketing campaign out of Japan for a step counter. They named it Mampo-ke. If you use Google Voice Translate and go from Japanese to English and say Mampo-ke, this is what you get spat back at you. But if you Google Translate the words 10,000 from English to Japanese, you get back this character with the pronunciation guide of man. Think about how powerful this is. The Japanese word for 10,000, when combined with this character for step, doesn't mean 10,000 steps. It means pedometer. Anyways, this marketing ploy from decades before I was born has proliferated the international consciousness to the point where some health insurance providers offer discounts if you have a pedometer, Fitbit, Apple Watch, or anything else that can demonstrate that you hit at least 10,000 steps every single day. Crazy how a marketing campaign more than 50 years old, based on no scientific data at the time, is literally guiding people's insurance rates today. But I digress. Regardless, what we do know as a scientific medical fact is that physical movement of any kind, especially of low impact like walking, is a net positive for our bodies. And as someone who spends the majority of the day seated in front of a screen, introducing movement has definitely been a long time coming. So that's the why. But given that I'm here in Canada with some pretty cold winters, why now? So I committed, come hell or high water, or maybe a more suitable way to say it, come wind chill or snow, that January would be the month to do the hardest version of walking 10,000 steps a day in the freezing cold so that every version afterwards will be easier. Hopping into the health app on my phone, you can see that every day in January was a successful completion. And you and I both know, if you spend at least an hour of doing something, anything, for a month, you learn a few things, which leads us to the 5 lessons I learned. Lesson 1. Just knowing some basic time and distance metrics as they relate to your body is pretty cool. Practically speaking, the biggest benefit is about knowing time expectations. You know, we have this natural tendency to just invent time requirements and often say things like, oh yeah, that park, it's like 5 minutes away, or yeah, I'll see you at 6. It'll only take me 10 minutes to get there. And then we wonder why we're constantly late. Now I know in no uncertain terms that if my car broke down, it'll take me 11 minutes at my default pace to walk a kilometer. That's equivalent to 18 minutes to walk a mile, over a blend of uphill, downhill, and flatland. And every mile for my stride length is just shy of 2,000 steps, about 1,300 steps per kilometer. I now know how long it'll take me to get to major landmarks near where I live, 22 minutes from my apartment's door to the nearest gas station, 18 minutes to the nearest bank machine. Lesson 2 is similar, but it's more about knowing my own body so much better, and especially in the context of winter walking, now having full confidence of knowing what temperatures, wind speeds, and levels of precipitation I can handle in what types of gear. You ever watch the weather forecast, pick something out, and end up either shivering or sweating like crazy? No more for me. I know things now. Things like how a standard cotton hoodie under my 750 fill down jacket will leave me sweating buckets and therefore even colder if it's warmer than -10 degrees Celsius or 14 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that if I'm walking, I can go in regular sneakers in the same conditions if there's no snow on the ground without feeling cold toes. Those numbers, by the way, are for me and me alone, and that's the point. I've gotten to know my body so much better and its tolerance to different winter climates and weather conditions, and so will you if you just walk outside every day for a month. Lesson 3, gamification really works. I thought it was all a gimmick, but closing the rings on my Apple Watch was really a motivator. If you want to adjust to a new habit, I encourage you to experiment and think of some way to gamify it. And when it comes to walking specifically, whether it's closing rings on an Apple Watch or hearing a 10,000 step chime on a pedometer, it was oddly satisfying and was the weird yet effective crossover point of motivation for me. Lesson 4, quote-unquote boredom is actually incredible for productivity, inspiration, and results in other areas of life. You know when you leave home and realize you forgot the coffee you just made, but the 30 steps to go back to get it is just too far? So you end up saying screw it? That sort of happened to me on day 8. Prior to that, I'd created playlists, queued up podcasts, and spend my morning walks with some sort of input into my ears. Day 8, get outside and realize I left my phone in my apartment and thought, I have come too far. But after that day, I never brought my phone again for the rest of that month-long challenge. See, we all know that we're inundated with an endless ocean of input, work emails, group chats, social feeds, Netflix, the news. We don't have many opportunities to develop our own true thoughts, expand on ideas, and think critically about the inputs we're constantly refreshing. That walk and all subsequent walks for the rest of the month made me realize how scatterbrained my default state was, and festering in independent reflection was, by a huge margin, the greatest benefit to this challenge. To come home with new ideas, better ideas, ideas about how to solve challenges I've been facing with work just really set my day up for not necessarily more productivity, but unequivocally better productivity. Lesson 5, just because you feel fine day to day doesn't mean you're actually healthy. Check it out, Vo2 Max is an important metric, and I'm so out of shape from a cardiovascular standpoint that it's concerning. The scariest thing about it is that walking a few miles, I didn't feel out of breath. I mean, my heart rate definitely increased as it should, but I never felt winded, so I assumed my cardio health was fine. So what is Vo2 Max? In short, it's the maximum amount of oxygen your body can consume during physical movement. Doesn't matter if we're talking about walking, the bedroom no pants dance, or organized sports. Looking at this breakdown, as a male, you can see there is this graph that shows the Vo2 max metric on the vertical y-axis and age ranges on the x-axis broken down from high, above average, below average, and low. And shooting back to my own readings, I am confidently in the low zone. The good news though? You can see that I started on January 1st at a tragically low 25.3 and shot up 6.1 points to 31.4 in a month, with just no more than walking 10,000 steps a day. This is so important to me that for this video, I'm far less interested in the weight loss benefits of walking. I'm purposely not sharing those metrics because I want to drive home the point that this discovery of Vo2 Max was so eye-opening for me. Do I think you guys should go out and buy a Fitbit or an Apple Watch just so you can track Vo2 Max? Absolutely not. Don't let anyone, and certainly not me, ever make you feel like you need to spend any money. But if you have an Apple Watch or other wearable device that can give you a Vo2 Max readout, I think it's fascinating and in my case, terrifying. And this is enough to galvanize my internal energy and motivation in me to keep walking daily, and beyond that to increase my physical movement through and through. And if you don't have something that can track Vo2 Max, just seeing earlier that I can improve my cardio fitness by nearly 25% in just 1 month may just encourage you to go for a walk every day regardless of trackability, because fact, just doing it will improve this vital health marker that I've never heard about until this past month, and I venture to guess you never heard of either. If fat loss is what you're primarily after, it doesn't matter how much you exercise if you don't figure out a sustainable fat loss conducive way of eating that works for you. And I think you'll love these 2 videos right over here. And by the way, if you got some value, please do hit that like button. And if you got lots of value, consider subscribing and hitting that bell so you'll be notified of future videos just like this one. But regardless, thanks for kicking it with me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.